Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. So this is part 1 of the 1/32 scale special hobby Hawker Tempest Mk.II. Because this is a 32nd scale model, so I'm going to build it in various sections or parts. So this is part 1 and I was just getting ready to paint parts that you see laid out there. And I thought that, before I get into the painting process of the cockpit assembly, it would be best to give you an overview of it. The best place to start off with would be the instruction sheet itself. So as I mentioned earlier, you have your very well laid out instruction sheet, and we began with the first step of assembling the cockpit. And so I'm not going to go through each of these steps because the assembly was pretty straightforward. The instructions are well explained. I just followed them from step number 1. I just followed them in the sequence that is mentioned, and finally I got myself down to step number 17, where I need to put in the PE parts on the seats. So We'll just basically talk about the roadblocks or the issues that might have been there with the kit. So beginning with step number 1, nothing out of the ordinary, just simply assembling the parts together. So step number 2 actually shows you that you need to attach these PE parts. Now, just to give you a look at the PE parts, so here's the PE holder. And I've cut out those PE parts. Now you can see that these parts are extremely small. Because of the size of those PE parts, it was very difficult to keep a track of them, hold them. Now this part says that you need to bend the PE parts like so, and this is PE part number 14 and 17, so you need to bend it and attach it, this one vertically and this one horizontally. This one on the right side and this one on the left side of the cockpit. So that was one thing which was a learning for me, of course. All right, so currently I'm at step number 3 in the build, and you see that this is the left side outer bracket of the cockpit assembly. So here you can see I've already assembled a few parts inside it. So it asks you to put in this part, which is PUR, and I noticed there are other parts also labeled as PUR. So you've got PUR 14, 9, 13, 12, but what exactly is PUR? I thought that was the sound that a cat makes. Purr. Anyway, so jokes apart, it asks you to assemble these parts first, and this entire assembly goes on here. PUR4, the wheel kind of assembly, goes on here, and then you've got these normal parts from the screws I-73 and I-69. Now let me talk a little bit about PURs. So when I opened the resin parts, I found that there are no markings of these parts on those parts. So I took my OHP marker and simply looked at the resin parts map, and then I put down all the numbers for all the parts on the resin parts, and as you can see, here are the others as well, wherein I have put down the labels with my OHP marker, so that it makes it easier for me to identify these parts, because in the original parts there are no labels. Now, talking about resin parts, so step number 11 here, I think this is the gyro gun sight, and it's asking you to assemble the gyro gun sight with the film. So the film kind of goes in, one at the back, one in the front, and the top one you have to bend it in this form and attach it. But all of that aside, it says this is part number PUR11, and PUR11, as you see here, you see 2 parts that are marked PUR11, and now the actual PUR11 parts, if you look at this, it says PUR11 here, and these are actually not the gyro gun sights, but these are your rudder pedals, which actually go into the main cockpit right about there. You see that? So these are PUR11s, and now that's a big error, and I tried looking for the gyro gun sight in all of the PE parts, in fact all of the screws as well, but this particular part is not available anywhere. So this is a part that's missing. Of course, I checked for the film. The film is there, but this main part that attaches basically onto the front of the instrument panel here, this part is missing. So Special Hobby, big error, big error there in the parts list. The second thing is I am right now at the assembly of the cockpit, and as you can see, from a complexity perspective, it's a very nice build. Of course, it is 30 seconds, so it's bound to have those details. Now here you see this part, it doesn't align straight up. So I've tried my best to align it somehow or the other, but in doing so, what happens is this particular section, the section for the throttle, starts interfering with this kind of a floor section here of the cockpit. And if I move it down any further, these two will interfere and it doesn't let you close up properly. Although I've thought of just gluing it like so, but I'm not sure how the fit will be once I assemble this whole structure inside the fuselage. I'm not sure how that build is going to be, but we'll see. My suggestion would be to dry test fit the parts first. Here's the other part of it. Now there's this little lever that they show here to be attached. This little lever here, it's attached so precariously here, and you know, invariably you're going to knock it out when you're assembling these other resin parts. And there's a similar lever on the other end as well. I'll just show you that. There it is. I hope you can see it right down there. I'll show you from the other side. Right here. You see that? And invariably, about 3 to 4 times, I ended up knocking it out. The assembly of this lever is given as one of the first parts to be assembled right here in step number 3. So that's the lever there. You see part I-69, it assembles right here in this little notch here. But invariably, while assembling the other parts, you are going to knock it off because it is so precariously mounted out there. So I would suggest that when you're building this kit, you know, keep this lever for the end so that you don't keep knocking it out. I knocked out the lever on both the cockpit brackets at least 4 times. So, you know, that became a huge issue for me to handle. Right, so apart from that, the cockpit looks good. It's got some good detail. Now there is a film that you need to attach here. So once I paint up the cockpit or the instrument panel, you know, that's when I will attach the film, and on top of that there's going to be a photo etch. So that was pretty simple. This is the assembly of the rear bulkhead of the seat mounts. So basically that's the seat there, and the seat will basically mount up out here like so. Now the seat again is resin, and you can see there's some very good bit of detail there on the seat. I'm planning to scratch build a little cushion here with modeling clay. So I'll scratch build a little cushion and put it in here because that's something that I find it's missing. But that bit of detail is going to add some good depth onto this seat, which is already pretty detailed, as you can see there. So I'm getting ready to paint this now, and once I paint all the parts, I'll come back and show you how they look. Alrighty folks, so here we are, and I am all done with the interiors of the cockpit. As you can see here, all the parts were fixed, the PE parts were attached. I have painted up the cockpits here, the cockpit sidewalls, I mean to say. I have painted them up here. I've also detailed the rear portion where tail wheel is supposed to attach, so I painted and weathered that up too. And here's a look at the painted up cockpit walls. All the details are done. So that completes the cockpit assembly, and here is the entire seat with the seat belts, the pilot's cockpit, and all the other goodies attached and done. So I've also weathered it up. I've also attached the instrument panel, as you can see there. So just to talk a little bit about you know, the things that I did, beginning with the painting. So the painting of the cockpit walls, basically it was pretty simple. I just painted it up with Fevicryl sap green color, toned down with a little bit of black, just to you know, settle down the brightness of the sap green color. And then once all the painting was done, I left it to dry for about 3 to 4 days. Not because the paint took that long to dry, but 3 to 4 days is because I was busy with life, busy with office work, and all that sort of stuff. So life gets in between my modeling as well. But so I just left it to dry once I was done with the painting, and after 3 to 4 days, then I sprayed a coat of gloss varnish over it. And after the gloss varnish dried up, then I took up the Camlin soft pastels and the brown soft pastels. Basically, I created a wash out of it and just applied the wash liberally inside the cockpit walls so that the wash flows between the crevices. And then once that was dry, I cleaned it up with a cotton Q-tip, and that's how we are at the current stage of the cockpit wall assembly. Moving on to the overall cockpit floor assembly. So this was done in various modules. I showed you the modules in the beginning of this video. So the first module is the left cockpit bracket. The second module is the right cockpit bracket. The third module is the rear bulkhead of the seat. The fourth module is your instrument panel itself, and the fifth module is the seat, and of course the PE seat belts that you see attached over here. So about the PE, so it gives you those steps to follow for the laser cut parts. So first step is take the pre-cut textile part out of the sheet, remove the supporting paper, crumple the belt into a little ball and knead it between the fingers, thread the belts through the buckles. And this is easier said than done, because it was a very tedious task to thread the belts through those buckles. You needed 6x6 extremely sharp eyesight to ensure that you are able to thread it through those buckle holes. And I am telling you, this wasn't child's play. This wasn't child's play at all. So you really needed a lot of patience, tons and tons of patience, in fact, lot of time, very sharp eyesight. It took me about 3 to 4 hours, of course in different sittings, but over a span of 2 days is what I was able to thread those 8 seat belts through these little holes that you see here. Very difficult task, very frustrating, because the instructions are actually misleading. So the instructions, they tell you to remove the parts off the PE fretboard and then start threading the seat belts through those buckle holes. But had I done that, it would have been just absolutely impossible for me to have any control over those, I would say, microscopic buckles. So what I did was I left the PE parts on the PE frets themselves, and I began threading those seat belts through the buckle holes, ensuring that I followed the instructions correctly. And even though I was concentrating, I ended up making mistakes at 2 places, even though I was following the instructions correctly. Of course, after that, I used my two-part epoxy putty, which is Fevicryl molded, and created the seat cushion by just pressing it down into the space that was provided, and of course painted it over once that was done. And this was followed up with the overall assembly of all the laser cut parts into the seat belt assembly, as you can see here. So I just followed the instructions the way it showed and created various shapes of the seat belts and molded them into the seat cushion and the sides of the seat walls, and then mounted the seat on the bulkhead and then glued down the seat belts on the seats themselves. Finally, I began painting up the elevator trim wheel, the control column, and also began detailing the lever and the rudder pedals. And these were done with basic Fevicryl brown, black, red colors. And the rudder pedals, of course, they were detailed with the Pen Touch silver paint pen. And that completed both the left and right cockpit brace brackets. And here is the completed cockpit assembly of the Hawker Tempest Mk.II. So I've covered the first part, and this is the entire cockpit assembly. I hope you enjoyed watching this detailed video. Stay tuned for part number 2, because currently I am at the assembly of the external airframe, and once I have a significant section of the airframe assembled, I will release part number 2. So thank you for staying up till the end of this video. Bye bye, take care, see you in the next video.